sorry for the non-lit video. It is 5:32 in the morning on Friday, October 21st, 2022. I'm laying here awake, writing a case for an incident that happened between my family and I. And I came to the realization of my religion, which is called Truthism, and it focuses on worshiping a being called the creator of all upon existence. Now, I've gathered this information by looking at multiple religions and also understanding how they are correct and incorrect, as well as wrong, some of them, in their own ways, and how they also all contradict each other while at the same time agreeing with each other. For example, comparing Catholicism /Buddhism, /Baptism, not Buddhism, to what the Indonesians worship, which is multiple gods. Well, you have to think about it. In Catholicism, well, you know what? We'll just call it Christianity instead of Catholicism /Baptism. We'll just call it Christianity. In Christianity, it says how there is one God above all. Well, in the Indonesians' beliefs, there is a group of deities, so to speak. Now, whether those deities have a god that is above all of them or not, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure they do, as looking at what the Romans believed in, there was a Zeus. So, I did not thoroughly look into any of them. This is kind of just me skimming over the basics of what I've been taught of these religions. I never really did any thorough research into them, truly and honestly. And I kind of just looked over what knowledge I have already accumulated of these religions. Now, none of them really suit me. There's Catholicism, in which I've been looking into and trying to implement some of what they believe. I've also, of course, done my best to implement some of what the other religions believe in. Of course, I only implement what I view as good and correct, which does not include sacrificing animals. Okay, it does not include that. Me personally, outside of all the religions, do not believe in killing animals. For sacrificial purposes. Now, there is things like having to put an animal out of its misery, in which, an accident happens that it's literally one step away from death, and you can't get it to a vet in time, and it's about to die and suffer, and you just need to help it along, because it's already about to die, it's suffering, and it needs to be put out of its misery. For example, I was driving down the highway one day, and a car in front of me hit a snake with both its front and back tires, and then I accidentally hit the snake. I couldn't swerve to avoid it, and the car behind me hit the snake as well. Well, the snake was in the road. I circled back. I was the only one out of the 3 cars that circled back, and it was laying on the side of the road, its body still moving and such. So I tried to see if I could save it, but its skull had been halfway smashed through. So I couldn't save it. Bone was sticking out and everything. So I moved it out of the road, and I took a fairly large rock and finished it off so that it wouldn't need to suffer anymore. That's acceptable. It was near death, and it was suffering. It couldn't be saved. I couldn't get it to a vet. It was on the highway, there was nothing I could have done for it except for to finish it. And I did. I mean, its body was still moving afterwards, but that was for the fact of the matter of how a chicken still walks around with its head cut off. It's the nervous system still going. It's not even the brain that's alive anymore. It's dead. It's gone. And after a time, I began to look at everything in these religions that I knew and that I could view as good and correct. And I realized that there was a being above it all. It was one singular being. However, I came to realize it was called the creator of all upon existence. And then a new religion was introduced to me there afterwards from the Sumerians, in which they believed that there was a being that, how do I say, basically was a consciousness. And that is what we perceived as God in the Bible. Now, the Sumerians' translation of the Bible is similar to the original translation. However, it's also shedding a different type of light onto it, in which there are also, yes, multiple beings, but they, how do I say, they're godlike beings, but one is good, one is bad, and then there's the ones that follow the good, and ones that follow the bad, and it just goes on. I mean, it's similar, but it's almost like it's shedding more light into what actually goes on between good and evil. I haven't exactly looked into it very much. The only religion I've actually ever read from a book and not seen on TV or did research on my phone about was the Bible. And I began to realize that even the Bible has been misconstrued, because over generations, even whole pages have been taken out of it and removed from it, not because they were too fragile to have deciphered, but because they needed to make the Bible shorter. And I know this because my great grandmother had a Bible. On my dad's side, had a Bible that was made in, I think, either 1774 or 1874. And my grandma on my mom's side had also had the same Bible. And I read this Bible, and the words just flowed so easily into me. They were so clear. I wasn't even, maybe less but 10 at the time. They were complicated, but I understood them. And all I could do was get past the part where God created. See, that's the thing, they didn't call it God. The introduction was that God preferred to be called Yahweh. And that's how they would refer to God in this book, in this Bible, was Yahweh. And it would say how Yahweh created life, and how Yahweh gave light and love and peace in this first chapter. And that was just the chapter of how it created everything. And I just was so, and the words that they used were extremely complicated, but I understood them as clear as day. I never got to finish that Bible. I never got past that first chapter. Soon thereafter, I began to get other Bibles that were made at not earlier, hold on a second, that were made closer, how do I say, that were newer and not older than that Bible. And with each one I read, just that same first chapter, the words changed. They got shorter. Some words were even just taken out completely. And had more English than anything, and they would call it God and they wouldn't call it Yahweh. And I just was so confused. I just got so confused reading these other Bibles. Nothing flowed easily. Nothing was easily understandable, though the words were closer to English. They made less sense. That's when I began to look. That's when I began to try and find out the truth of why is this happening? And the Bibles, they got smaller, way smaller. They were put on smaller bits of paper. They were less thick. They got thinner and thinner. And they just did not make any sense. And the whole time I was reading these other Bibles, I couldn't stop thinking about Yahweh. I couldn't stop thinking about how it was so complex yet so simple. That Bible, it definitely stood out amongst the rest. And this is just the first chapter. And by how the book looks, man, like, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. No religion is stable that we have ever had. It is not stable. As human beings, we sit there and we avoid the truth of it's the creator of all upon existence. And in short terms, creator of all. It doesn't matter what religion you look at. It doesn't matter how you look at the religion. There is always one that stands out above the rest. There's always one being that stands out above the rest. And I've tried so many times to call it Yahweh. I've tried to call it other religious names, other deity names like Goddess of War, Medusa, Athena, whatever. It doesn't feel correct. If it does not feel correct, not good, not right, not wrong, not incorrect, but if it does not feel completely correct within yourself, it can't be good. And even if it does, you have to ask yourself a series of questions just to make sure that it is correct. Because you have to know that it is correct as well as feel it. And it is a journey. It is honestly a journey because there are things that don't feel correct, but you know they are correct because you've analyzed them and see, I use numbers also, just to make sure that the numbers line up, because numbers have been around for a very long time. So I use things also that have been proven scientifically as well. So it's like science and religion mixed. Math is part of science. I don't care who you are, math is part of science. You need to know how many milliliters to pour into a vial. You need to know how to make the vial, yada yada yada. Math is part of science. They work hand in hand with each other. And the fact of the matter is, making sure that it is correct by running the correct numbers is ultimately how you understand that it is correct. And it just is complicated. No one said it would ever be easy. It is the most complicated thing you will ever attempt to do in your lifetime. That's just how it is. It's not easy. It's not clear. It's complicated. And intense. Extremely intense. But what comes out of it is love, understanding, care, appreciation, satisfaction in most cases, and it's real. You can't deny it half the time. You try to deny it. You sit there and, no, this isn't correct. You're incorrect. You're wrong. You don't know anything. You tell yourself this, you don't know anything. But then you tell yourself, well, are you sure? Are you positive? Because even if you are incorrect, it's not like you can't fix it, So yes, I did make it up. The religion. But it wasn't made up based off of fiction. It wasn't made up based off of facts. It was made up based off of a combination of both. But it was made up off of a combination of all that is good and correct within both. And that is my book smarts. My street smarts are well, they're not really different. They kind of play into each other, per se. I mean, and to me, my book smarts and my street smarts are the same. Because I'm smart, and it's just me. You know? So, they're not really different to me. And in all honesty, I've never been so happy. Even when I read that original Bible of Yahweh, I wasn't this happy. I wasn't this thrilled, this connected. I was disconnected. Even when I read that book, it was only one chapter. And, that one chapter, it changed so many times. So many times. To me, it is creator of all upon existence. Because the creator of all upon existence is an amazing being. And I will go into it in a different video because this is getting really long. I guess look for part 2. Love you guys. Good night. Oh, well, it's night time, but it's not. Have a safe day and night wherever you're at. And I guess just be careful out there, yeah? Like, honestly, be safe. Alright, bye.